everyone. Thank you for joining us. President Trump welcomed the King of Jordan to the White House Tuesday, just one day after threatening to withhold aid from the Middle Eastern nation if it does not take in Palestinian refugees. President Trump continued to claim the U.S. would take control of the Gaza Strip as part of his plan to promote, quote, peace in the Middle East. Details of how he would take over the land or where Gaza's 2 million residents would go remain unclear. King Abdullah did commit to taking in 2,000 sick and injured Palestinian children, but would not directly reject or express support of the president's plan.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site.
The president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present it to the president and not get it.
After his meeting, President Trump signed an executive order to tackle one of the biggest agenda items of his presidency so far, shrinking the federal government and reducing its workforce. He was joined by Elon Musk, the unelected leader of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to defend actions the administration has taken to downsize government.
So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the President, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens, as opposed to a large, unelected bureaucracy.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now from a snowy White House. Weijia, how is this executive order different from other White House directives and memos so far? And what are the major criticisms Musk and DOGE have faced, and how do they respond?
So there was another executive order which basically enforced the creation of DOGE. The one that the president signed today empowers DOGE and really lays out how each federal agency and each head of each agency is supposed to consult and receive the advice of DOGE before making any hiring decisions. As an example, it lays out the fact that, you know, these heads of agencies, before they bring on any new staffers, they can only bring on so many for each person that they eliminate, and they have to consult with DOGE. So essentially, we know that DOGE itself doesn't have authority. It is not a federal agency. However, we also see the workaround here because it directs all the federal agencies to work in cooperation with DOGE, Lindsay.
We heard the King of Jordan say that he'll be in Saudi Arabia to discuss Gaza and that Egypt will present something to the president. Do we have any idea what the next steps are or the timeline, and any other major takeaways you have from their meeting?
I think the biggest takeaway was what the King of Jordan said after their meeting, because, of course, when they're sitting next to each other and they're practicing diplomacy, that's very different from policy. And afterwards, King Abdullah posted on X, I reiterated Jordan's steadfast position against the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. This is the unified Arab position. Rebuilding Gaza without displacing Palestinians and addressing the dire humanitarian situation should be the priority for all. So even though he sort of talked around the question when he was asked directly in the Oval Office, the king put it very clearly there that they are in opposition of President Trump's plan to displace some 2 million Palestinians. But what is important to note here, Lindsay, is that he also said, you know, the most important thing is what's best for his country. And even though today President Trump said he didn't think he would have to threaten aid to Jordan, he said something different yesterday, which was if countries did not comply with his vision to remove 2 million Palestinians, that he would consider withholding aid. And we know that the U.S. gives Jordan $1.45 billion in aid every year. So that's certainly something that will complicate this moving forward.
Weijia Jiang, thank you. Later this hour, we'll have more on President Trump's meeting with the King of Jordan and take a look at the strategic relationship between the two countries. Top Israeli officials are reacting to President Trump's comments on the ongoing ceasefire in Gaza. We're Davis with our partners at the BBC has more from Jerusalem.
There is overwhelming support both in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories for the ceasefire agreement to continue because it has brought tangible benefits for both sides. 21 hostages have been released from Hamas control in Gaza in exchange for more than 500 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. Now, the process did hit a major snag earlier this week when Hamas said it was suspending the release of hostages this coming Saturday because of what it said were Israeli infringements of the agreement. But Hamas says it is still continued to the ceasefire process itself. Now, the Israeli government, the minister Miri Regev, has tonight come out and said that after Mr. Trump said he wanted to see all 76 hostages released on Saturday, that she and her government supported that view. The Israeli Prime Minister has been perhaps deliberately vague, saying that he demanded Hamas release Israeli hostages by noon on Saturday or the war in Gaza would resume. Mr. Netanyahu didn't say whether he meant all of the hostages still in captivity or 3 or 4 hostages as would normally be envisaged under the ceasefire agreement. So the question is, if Hamas comes out with a list of 3 named hostages it intends to release on Saturday, will Mr. Netanyahu say, no, that is not enough, I want everyone released? If not, we will return to war, because that would be a very, very dangerous situation. It would almost certainly lead to a resumption of the war in Gaza. It's very unclear at this stage what is going to happen. There are 2 full days to go before Friday, when Hamas would normally release the list of hostages. This is a ceasefire that is still very, very precarious.
Wyre Davis, thank you.